Venus wisdom on a Venus day, and I was talking about relationships, Venus and the moon. And as I finished this video, I was talking about finances. I was watching a short by the channel Your Rich BFF, which is a really cool channel. And she was given an example of a man who is marrying a woman that they've been dating for 4 years, and she's looking to buy a house with their savings, and he was looking into speculative investments like Bitcoin, his money, NFT, which he believed would make them billionaires in the future, and he spent all his life savings on it, and his future spouse was like, oh my gosh, how could you do such a thing after you promised me you will not invest anymore in those speculative investments? And I was like, dang, that's a Venus thing that you like. I gotta talk about this. So, what was happening here? From an astrological point of view, guy was into speculative investments and wanting to do the traditional thing. Let's save our money, buy a house, put you do our 401k, 401k, or um, whatever savings for the future, and have a solid investment, traditional. And that, if I would predict what their eighth house would look like, um, we can say that the eighth house, when you talk about astrology, is the joint resources of a business partner, of a significant other, or a marriage partner. So, eighth house is your investments and how you invest. And to some extent, also your 11th house. And I'm just looking at the chart of today. So, to have compatibility in relationships, you also need to have financial or fiscal compatibility. If one of you is very much into speculative investments and the other one is very much the other way around, then coming to an agreement might be difficult. And it can be both. Where is Venus for either partners? Because Venus or and Mercury also rule. Mercury is trade, and Venus also rules our values, what we put our money in. But also, at is your eighth house and the eighth house of your significant other. Um, for example, this eighth house, Saturn in it. So this is the chart of today. If that was a chart of a person, that would be a person with Saturn there. That would be a person that would either have difficulty, delays, or committed to certain type of investment that are mm, traditional, but they can, for example, invest in um, well, something to do with the tried and not really the tried and true, but certain scientific developments, or technology, or even something like SpaceX, or kind of a space voyage. It can either be some futuristic thing that take a lot of time, and that's a long-term investment, intellectual property of some sort, with Saturn, maybe something studies, or I don't know what. And take that, for example, and imagine they are about to marry a person with a Leo in the eighth house. And so Leo in the eighth house might seek for investments in maybe the arts, for like very known arts, not NFTs, but actual, stuff like museum pieces or some sort of mm, something like something to do with leaders or well, it depending, like if you had Mars there, then maybe even weapon industry. Um, but definitely something that is fixed, is long lasting, but is completely different. And that, these opposition can meet each other, but let's say the person had Aries in their eighth house. And here we have Chiron there, but and Jupiter is about to enter Aries. So that when Jupiter ingresses into Aries, and let's say a person has it in their natal chart in the eighth house, that would be a person who is very much inclined to be very optimistic about the next best thing. Oh, there's this new very speculative, like that guy with the NFT, like they found the NFT that's going to make them rich, the thing that's going to make them something, like that. When Neptune and Jupiter hit Aries, we might have a lot of these. Like if Aries is in your eighth house, what the couple coming years might be quite, tremendous. Um, and that is also a Venus wisdom and a Venus day thing, because even though I talk about the eighth house, and you see here, the ruler is Saturn, here the ruler is Mars, um, Venus is also about relationships, and when you unite with someone, com- committed relationship or relationship where your individual resources affect each other, then those joint resources that you have, even for tax purposes, like you could have the best prenuptial ever. When in some country, like if you live in Israel, if you report um, your own wealth, then you report in the name of the person that has the most wealth from the couple, and that is the name for tax purposes. It's against every human right, and it's absolutely supportive of financial it's true that needs to change. Yesterday, 200 years ago, we only exist for 74 years. So but for tax purposes, in some countries there is no there is no prenuptial. If you get into debt, or your partner gets into debt, no, like a lot of tax, you know, taxation policies won't give a flying, about your prenuptial. And that's something to consider, because eighth house compatibility um, is how your fiscal life together, not just fiscal life, also energy life, also many, so when two auras turn into one aura, that aura is both the composite chart, but partially also the eighth house, which has just gone missing. Okay, this is funny. Yes. Okay. Okay. Then we'll just see this beautiful circle circling and doing funny stuff. So eighth house, and that's a slight addition to the Venus wisdom on a Venus day, and that's something you want to pay attention to. And again, instead of asking, who is the a-hole, or who betrayed who, because that, I go back to the example of the Rich BFF channel. where the question was like, oh, the spouse felt, the future spouse felt like, oh, this person is betraying me. They told me they're never going to do speculative investment, and now they tell me they found this NFT that's going to make us, billionaires. Um, and from, from the guy's point of view, they put all those things there thinking about too. Put in their individual life savings, but they all of them, but on an NFT, thinking about two people. So they're like making a huge investment in the connection from their vantage point, from their point of view. And you also have to understand that when you deal with those things, because different, just like different Venuses or different love languages or different people, um, that eighth house thought, and differing eighth houses, we talk about relationships, and that's a Venusian theme. Um, then, like, we need to be able to accommodate in the discourse for diverse, diverse investors and diverse ways of spending money, and you might not be compatible, you might not choose to marry, but your difference is not a betrayal. Your difference is not a manipulation. It's not game playing. It's not disrespect. It's not lack of honoring. It's genuine difference. And of course, I'm speaking when those things are genuine. Of course, you could have, like, a nasty Pluto to the eighth house aspect where a person can be either susceptible to manipulation or be manipulated. But I'm talking about genuine connections. And that's another Venus wisdom. It's in the light of Venus wisdom on a Venus day. Knowing these things creates for better communication. Remember, this sky is conjuncting, applying to conjunct Mercury, that's retrograde. And when this is a good time to rethink about those types of agreements, like prenuptial. Venus and Mercury in Capricorn. What better time than that, than to reflect on prenuptials and reflect on eight houses of people that are going to get married or are going to even have a business partnership. Sometimes it's a joint resources of a joint venture. And it's good to see those things, to foresee those things, to understand what can stand the test of time and what can't. It's also important, now we're talking Capricorn, the current transit, it's also important to understand what is the legislation in the places that you're going to spend your lives or your company's lives, because Capricorn is all about plutocrats. And like I said, for in Israel, for tax purposes, it doesn't matter what prenuptial you made. Whoever has the most wealth, whose name you write for tax purposes. That's insane. That should be changed. That's abnormal. That's not in alignment with the 22nd century. This is also, hey, this is also, oh, I'm going doing that again. It's that one. Um, but this is also something you definitely want to know before you make an agreement. And some of you might be, if you have this in your seventh house, this transit, and I'm talking about this transit, okay? Mercury applying to conjunct, Venus applying to conjunct Mercury, and Mercury is still direct here, but it's already in shade period. It's already entered shade. You've seen my video from yesterday. If you've seen my video from yesterday and you saw the way it ended, you wouldn't think I had a malware. I thought I might have a malware in my phone, but I just let the phone rest and I opened it and everything is fine again. And that was just my phone communicating with me in weird ways. Okay, that was yesterday's video. That's already Mercury in the shade. Okay, Mercury and then technological device doing crazy. And you definitely might be curious about my yesterday video, which is if we talk about things that stand the test of time. I was talking about the ingresses of Pluto into Aquarius and back to Capricorn and back to Aquarius, and I was looking at the chart of each and beginning to make like predictions and associations and talking about possible scientific advances, like and possible advances in mathematics, the meaning of what it means to have a renaissance, and so on and so forth. So really nice stuff. And so this video is again in the spirit of that conjunction here, very much trining Uranus in Taurus. Venus does not trine it yet, but it's applying. Um, an unconventional point of view, and like a point, something in shocking news, shocking information, and then yeah, and then we have here the square to Jupiter. So Jupiter for some people can signify also the spouse, the bringer of that who is the bringer of children, that which you commit to long term for some cases, and that kind of that is at odds with what's going on here, with the values that stand the test of time. Saturn with relationship as whether business or personal, and there that is where the eighth house is the union. It's a business relationship, even if you're just getting married, because you probably have to think about your property together. And even if you live in separate houses, have all the prenuptials and have, different bank accounts that you allocate for your children or whatnot, in some countries for tax purposes, again, the regime, the plutocracy, you're still written on the name of, you're still considered a household. Or maybe you've been living together for a very long time and you're not married and you're not even romantically involved. You're good friends that live together. In some countries, legally, you could be a status of known in public. And when you're known in public to someone and you might not know that you're known in public, a lot of the things concerning debt, concerning legislation, concerning inheritance, which is also eighth house inheritance, the resource that you get from your other, um, they might be legislatively closer to your being married, and you could actually not like completely not have any romantic relationships. Um, so and this is also something that people don't know. It's not in every country, but it could be in your country. This is something that you're aware of now that Mercury is entering its shade period here. This is something that you want to be aware of. Look at the ascendant. Look when I'm talking about this. I'm looking at the Capricorn seventh house and look, okay? This is ascendant Cancer with Capricorn in the seventh house. This is a good time to think, if this is your seventh house, you want to be watching this video over and over and over and over and over and over again, because this applies to you. If you have ascendant Cancer, this video is specifically for you. It's true to everyone, um, but look how timely that video is. This is why I always like, if I don't have a screen to put on, I put on the Astro Clock. This is from AstroSig, and look at that ascendant. And that's another facet of this particular transit is Venus in Capricorn. Okay, where our relationships meet the plutocracy, the bureaucracy, the hierarchic organizations, the regime, the accountants, the taxation, and, and what adjustments are needed legislatively, in terms of lifestyle. For some of you, that might mean moving abroad. The ruler of the seventh here is in the eighth. Okay, so for some of you, you will need to live someplace else if you want to maintain financial fairness and not get into situations that you could be the most, enlightened the set of individuals, and just country, just the rules of the country that you live in, it put you in an inherently financially violent situation. Well, let's say one of you comes with that amount of wealth and the other comes with another amount of wealth into this, or maybe you're just, living together or sharing a space. Now we have you have a housing crisis. A lot of people are living in, more crises, and that can be a known in public situation. You don't know. A known in public, it's enough for witnesses to declare you known in public, and then it's about inheritance, it's about debt, it's about many things, and that's the status almost of like a married couple. um, so that very aspect of relationships is also Venus Capricorn. Here with Mercury, I can see thinking about it's both prenuptials, but also how is your company listed? How is your joint venture listed? You might be two people who want to have as much separation financially as you possibly can. And here it's Saturn, separation financially, can be separated, individuated, not united in the eighth house. Um, and you might want that type of arrangement where you have more individuation. You're like, okay, we're gonna collabo together, but we're gonna split, and we have maybe the technology to do so. However, you might in your business activity might in the books of your regimes or the countries or the places that you live in be prescribed as a company, an organization, a joint venture, and you might be written on the same name for tax purposes. So there is the arrangement between people and themselves. Here with Capricorn, it's there is a governing force to the relationship that has to be taken into account. Okay. And that governing force is whether you do activism about the rules, whether you apply to the parliament to change the rules, whether you agree with something that benefits you. Um, it's something that you're going to need to think about this Mercury retrograde. You're going to need to think about, and you're going to need to, foot yourself solidly and think about how are you going to do this. And Saturn here, the ruler of the seventh and the eighth, in this time where I speak right now, um, it is about trying to separate as much as possible, trying to separate, not live in the same house, not live in a shared property, not have a shared bank account, not be legally married, all these things. All these things. You're gonna have to have a lot of separation here to maintain something healthy. Um, because otherwise you might fall into, or alternatively, you might want to marry, or you might want to have a joint venture, but Saturn does not allow. Okay, Saturn in Aquarius is definitely about separation, severing ties, separating things. So the ruler of Venus in Capricorn is Saturn in Aquarius. And also the ruler of Pluto in Capricorn, also the ruler of Mercury in Capricorn right now is Saturn in Aquarius. Okay, which right now is in the eighth house. And look what I'm writing about, what I'm talking about. Okay, an example of, eighth house in marriages or in business partnerships. Um, Saturn wants to mature up through separation, through space, through, in a way, individuation, um, or alternatively, you're going to have like a joint patent that you have for your company, and then you need to understand the rules. What are the rules for that patent? Because I'm thinking intellectual property, that would be patent, or maybe you want to sign a patent, but you need to understand what countries are you producing for, or you need to understand how to do that. Maybe one of you is not a citizen of the country, and you want to write a patent on both your name and that country, and you want to be free. But it's not allowed. It's not allowed. Okay, or something. There is a difficulty. There is a delay. Um, or alternatively, you have a conflict that you're considering, and the solution is about separation. Not necessarily separation as a couple. For some of you, it is, but separation of your joint resources, because there's going to be a delay. For it is also, if it is a situation, Saturn is also ruling debt, so that's something to take into consideration if you're watching this video under this current transit. Uh, yeah, and this is a very, like, this is a very interesting transit, because like I can't separate Venus and Mercury here. I can't separate here the position of the houses. I can observe this Venus and Mercury being in and its other home in Aquarius. um so a lot of you are going to decide, even when it's not related, with relationship with the boss, 10th house, children, 5th house, uh hopefully not children, but for some of you it's like, is this the end of the relationship? Is this the end of the relationship? And for some of you the answer is going to be yes. Or how are we going to mature up? Whether you have a joint patent on intellectual property, or joint, investment in intellectual property, to separate, separate your everything, separate your legal status. Okay, don't get married. Don't be known in public if the rules of your country don't allow it. So the answer to your question for this Mercury retrograde and for this Venus in Capricorn is going to be, how do I how do I sort it out intellectually, scientifically, logically, which is also a form of detachment. Alternatively, how do we separate? How do we use, not sometimes it's separate like as a couple, but sometimes like probably most cases, and it's not going to be like a divorce or something like that, or not, or deciding not to work together, which is okay. um but it can actually be something like, how do we bring about um separation? How do we separate things, resolve this issue? you in that way, whatever is going to come up. I even think about, my videos. Like I talked about something, now I'm doing a separate video. Separation, Saturn. Um, so those things. And your way of dealing with that would be with a sort of very intellectually detached, logical manner, which is also how I talk about relationship. Or like, well, I have a teaching that is going to help you to see things from a more logical, more detached, and thus practical point of view. Okay, that's the type of teaching that I had to offer with Saturn, Aquarius. Saturn is also teaching. And I think that's that. I'm done mumbling for today. Two random, fascinating videos that are very important, very practical. I think those videos are a must watch for anybody who is considering to take in legalized steps in their relationships this coming Venus in Capricorn and or Mercury retrograde. So watch them both. Watch this one. Watch the previous video. And if you're interested in more like, the Pluto stuff in Aquarius, then I had at least two videos about this. The last one was fascinating. The first one was looking backwards into history. This one is more looking into the actual ingresses that are going to happen. It has some fascinating sciencey predictions. So if you're into that, yeah, that might be a video you want to watch. And yeah, if you've been watching and considering how can I donate this channel, but I do have a Patreon that I'm going to hopefully be not lazy and put it in the comments. And my idea is that it's going to be more like a Wikipedia than a standard Patreon, in the sense that I'm going to deliver value free and not have you priced out. And hopefully, if you are in a position where you are able and willing to donate and invest in spreading of information for free, and having people not be priced out of data, of knowledge, of tips, of hands-on practices, then you might consider investing, looking into my Patreon, and just donating, like just investing in that. I was thinking that that's a fair use of these platforms, then given the type of content that I give, then to build, and given our times, then to build, a community where you buy your way into being a VIP in my community. Okay, then this piece is interesting because the Vedic Indian traditional astrology would interpret it in the completely opposite way to my tradition, in which a sneeze would mean right. Sneeze is like right on. It's like your third eye saying, right on. This is truth. This person spoke truth. Um, so for me, it's like a signal that my ethical values and considerations are and judgment is correct. I sneezed. But in India, it's actually the other way around. If you about to enter or leave a building, you can watch a video that I had uh, in my Spirit of Matter series. It's the first interview that I had with a Vedic astrologer, and that left me speechless. And one of the things we were talking about is when you leave a space or enter a space, if you sneeze, then that means you shouldn't enter or shouldn't leave just yet until your third eye adjusts to the, who wanted to say the spaces in between worlds, but that's not what he said. He said, the differences between the spaces. And also, you should consider the energy. Maybe you shouldn't walk in there. If you enter in a place and you start sneezing, maybe you should go out and not walk in there. It's not a good place for you. Um, but for me, when I sneeze on a declaration, it in my culture, it means that my third eye is like approving. It's true. We sneezed on that. So yeah, and so back to our point. I just think that I wouldn't want people to be priced out, and I think it's more in the spirit of Age of Air and Pluto's upcoming ingress to Aquarius, to not create a community that you buy your way into and have like tiers. This is more Pluto Capricorn thing, and I do have Capricorn in the 11th house, but it feels like a more Capricorn thingy, like we form a community and then we have tiers, and then you can donate this sum of money, you get those videos, that sum of money, you get those videos, that sum of money, you get to see me, I don't know, put it on makeup in the middle of the kind of like extra VIP, and that is a Capricorn type of community, but the Aquarian type of community is more like, hey, let's do a Wikipedia type, like let's all share information open source. And I always invite people, if you have a video relating to my video and you're also open to other people publishing their videos that are related to your videos in your page, then you can put a link to your video, um, and if you can record a video reaction, but only if you make sure that also people can react to your videos, so that we can have a decentralized web of information, and more like an encyclopedia rather than you know a hierarchic form of information where you just have like one channel. It's like if somebody publishes a link to their channel here, it's considered publicity and they have to pay me fees and we have to pay YouTube fees and all that. So that's my thoughts. And yeah, and so if you like to make a donation, it's out there, it's open. I need it. um like I need to be able to make a living in a way that supports my well-being mentally and emotionally and physically. Otherwise, all the money that you make, and also all the money that you make out of work, and this is like I will do a sixth house, 12th house, um because sixth house is both our daily routines and the service we give to others at work. Used to be slavery, but it is the connection to our body, but it's also our physical health, and the 12th house is our mental health, and it's also spiritual house. I wouldn't, call it house of bad spirit. I think it's just a house of connection to other worlds, for the good, the bad, and the everything. It's also a house of like a near-death experience or something like that. It's a house of isolation, of retreat. It's not an easy house. Um, and also your mental health or spiritual health. And if you're going to go out to give service, and exchange that for money, but you don't like this does not give you health, then you're either going to be physically healthy but mentally kaput, and all your money is going to go to your medical bills, and you're not actually making money. Speaking about Venus in Capricorn. So, a lot of people say, oh, it's time of unemployment. Go get a job. Go. But, sometimes you have to consider it's not about go getting a job, because if you go and get a job but then you get sick, then you haven't earned any money. Okay, this is economy. It's practical economy. And you have to consider that. And so I think that the answer is to invest, when we have the money, to make sure that we invest in art, that we invest um, in spending money on those things that we seem to get for free. that we get that. Not all of us have the possibility to do that. I am myself limited in the ability to do that, not only financially in terms of how much money I have in the bank, but also my ability to exchange or to make a payment and so on and so forth. So I know this is the problem of many of you as well. Um, but more like practical financial thoughts. Um, I believe that investing in people making what they like to do for a living is something that and you enjoy consuming is it's the best form of investment eventually, because that's is going to ensure that our economy operates in a way that serves well-being. We want to grow wealthy with well-being. Okay, we want to grow wealthy with well-being. Um, and that, like, I'm a way better person than when I do this for a living than if I'm like forced to take on a certain job where I can either get sick or hurt somebody, like I can get like a bad person, or and be a burden on the economy again and the burden on society, because I would either be sick or be unemployed or be fired, or would be put in position where I have to fool people in to get their money, which I don't like to do. I don't do that. So so I had a hard time finding a job. Even though I got accepted to nearly everywhere, but I had a hard time keeping a job. And that's a real conversation. Like, that's a real conversation. And I think that is way better than to have this conversation and to have these changes now, because this is the way our economy is going. It's going to be a value-based economy in the sense of, exchanging services, or more like decentralized donation based, something that's more like economy should serve the people. And there is no, the economy is growing, the economy is same with the regime, right? A welfare system, they make money from our taxes. And even if you are on welfare, first of all, you pay taxes. And the minute you begin to work, you also cross a certain tier and then you pay taxes, which is good. We're supposed to pay, we're supposed to help one another. Sometimes taxes is not necessarily a bad thing. The question is, can you live after taxes? Can you live well? Um, but you have to take into consideration those people of the welfare. I hear things like in US, in some countries like Oregon, people planning to make working camps for the homeless, literally. Those people that plan that, they make, like, those governors, they make the money from the taxes of these homeless people, because those people, when they work, they pay taxes. When you're healthy and you're working, you pay taxes. So these people that want to deprive you from your wealth and to deprive you from your human rights, and wealth is not just the money in your bank. It's the nourishing food that you eat, it's the connections that you're able to have, it's the ability to do, a video like this. And those people living on your taxes, wanting to deprive you from your wealth by either making it regulatorily difficult for you to make money, or algorithmically difficult for you to make money, or you know criticizing your choices after they make it very, like, they take every step so that you can't keep a job and be healthy and wealthy, and then whatever choice you make, you're going to get criticized, and they put you in the position where you're being framed as the person who lives on the taxes of other people, when all you're trying to do is to make a life while making a living and make wealth in a way that keeps you healthy. And money will not go on the medical bill that eventually the government will have to support, because if you're homeless, even in the United States, the only way to get attention of a doctor is to go to the ER. If you're You like if you don't have housing, that's big. Like that's big on taxes. That's very expensive. It's the most expensive in the United States. Okay, those ER things, those emergency things, where a person has a heart attack, a person has, I don't know, inflammation, a person has toxicity that risks their life suddenly. Why? Because they had to do something crazy to see a doctor because they didn't want to stay out in the cold and something like that. Okay, that's rated on the taxes, and it's those people living from your taxes, even if you're in between jobs, that are framing you as a parasite, and that's globally. So, so yet another plutocracy conversation to make. Um, that's important and big. And that is why when I choose my Patreon, I realized that I'm just going to give the value that I'm giving, and I'm not going to play it the Pluto Capricorn way already, because I don't think that that's the vibe and that's the gist of it. We're moving towards decentralized economy, and and I know that it might not go as well in the beginning, because we're still in the Pluto Capricorn vibes. But I'm certain that this move is a lot more wealthy than any other move I have in mind right now. So let me know in the comments below if you have a Patreon. What's your experience? What are you considering for Patreons? How has this talk changed or not changed your mind? And what's your input on things? Like, if you have suggestions, I'm open to hear more about the new, because I have no idea what's to be or how is it going to work for humanity in a way that is humane. So yeah, random talks. Well, thank you for the like and thank you for watching. So feel free to write a smiley or something in the comments. So I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.